Today on Herndon Live, we'll give you the real facts about the Herndon homicide.
And Raleigh Hampson is back with sports with March Madness.
Those stories and more as Herndon Live gets underway. Hello and welcome to Herndon Live. I'm Jack Norcross alongside Mark Seaman today. Mark, thank you so much for joining me.
Nice to be back.
As always, good to see you. And today we'll be talking about the unfortunate event that happened over in Folly Lick Park, which is the site of a murder.
Yes.
It took place at Folly Lick Park, like we said, which is just a half a mile down the road from Herndon High School, as we can see here. Mark, do you think that it was a little worrisome for some students that the incident happened so close to the high school?
Yes, absolutely, because not only is the high school close to the crime scene, but you can see that there are also there are houses here. People live here, and a majority of people or students who live in these houses go to this school. And this is not the only school in the area. There are several others that are nearby, which makes a lot of more people worrisome that this happened so close to houses and this high school.
All right, so let's talk about the facts about what we know. And this is confirmed by the police department at this hour. And Herndon Live did ask for comment from the police and for some additional information. They declined to comment. But here's what we know according to some posts that press releases that they made online. It happened on Monday, March 16th. Police were called to a wooded area of Folly Lick Stream at 12:27 p.m. about a body found in the woods. When officers arrived, they saw a deceased male with upper body trauma. The male victim was later identified as William Adolfo.
William.
What did I say?
Widom.
Excuse me. William Adolfo Rivas Levia, who was 22 years old. Medical examiner preliminary concluded that the death is a homicide. Now, Mark, this poor man was so young.
Yes.
And do you think that played, if we can go back for a second, because we're not quite here yet. There we go, thank you. Do you think that, what do you think? It's just a terrible event,
Yes.
obviously.
People being murdered is not good.
Yeah, of course. Upper body trauma, Mark, this typically means?
This could mean a variety of things. It could mean trauma to the head. It could mean a gunshot above the waist.
Mm-hmm.
It could mean stabbing pretty much anywhere above the waist. Pretty much just above the waist counts as upper body trauma, and it can be a variety of things. But what can continue?
Yes.
Sorry.
Anyway, I know, Mark, that you watch a lot of forensic files, and you're
Yes.
very aware of how all this murder and homicide, how the investigation is handled.
Yes.
What is a typical investigation handled like?
Well, a typical investigation begins when a body is discovered, and then the police examine the crime scene. They find anything they could find, such as a murder weapon, how long the victim has been there, and everything else in the crime scene, which can include blood stains and other pieces of evidence. Then the first thing they do after the crime scene has been cleaned up and searched thoroughly is they try to determine the cause of death and identify the victim. Generally, identification comes first, but in certain cases this may not happen. And it is important to figure out the cause of death because it will rule it as a suicide or homicide or even a natural cause.
And this is usually determined by an autopsy,
yes,
correct?
Autopsy by a medical examiner.
Correct. All right, now, very interestingly, another homicide occurred just in the other side of the county in Annandale, Virginia, on Ivy Mount Court, as you can see at the very bottom right of your screen. I don't know if you can see, it's kind of getting cut off there. But this has had very similar pieces of evidence that was a little scary. So let's take a look at the pieces of evidence that we do have also confirmed from the Fairfax police, which is in Fairfax County and not in the town of Herndon like Folly Lick Park.
Yes.
Folly Lick Park is not in the town of Herndon, but let's look at the facts here.
All
So
right.
this also happened on Monday, March 16th. Police were called to the wooded area of Ivymont Court at 4:43 p.m. So this first call is getting in about 4.5 hours later. It was about a body found in the woods, which sounds very familiar. And when officers arrived, they saw a deceased male with upper body trauma, and the male victim was identified as Milton Adonai Leon Angel, who is 19 years old. Police say detectives are investigating this incident as a homicide. Very similar facts, Mark.
Yes.
According to Herndon. Once again, unfortunately, another young man murdered, unfortunately. Do you think that we will see an arrest made soon?
It is unknown because the police have confirmed in several articles that it is unlikely that these two killings are from the same person, committed by the same person. They will be investigated separately, but they will both be investigated separately as homicides. Now, your comment asking if an arrest will be made, it is unknown because certain homicides can take weeks to months to even decades, and some of them may never even go unsolved. But in this case, it all determines what was found at the crime scene, the victim himself, what he was doing in the weeks leading up to his death, or even years up to his arrest, because that will greatly help in solving the crime.
Right. Okay. Well, that's very interesting, Mark. Thanks so much, and you're going to stick around because we're going to take a look at our Herndon Live headlines coming up right now. So let's take a look at our headlines right now. President Obama on Wednesday toyed with the idea of making voting something that would be mandatory in the United States. Critics say that making voting mandatory would allow for uneducated voters to vote, causing some interesting elections. So, very interesting story there. I mean, who knows what could happen next with this story. But we have another very interesting story as our part of our Herndon Live headline. A woman could soon be the face of a $20 bill. A new campaign hopes to find that women in the $20 bill will have a woman by 2020. Many polls are running online asking the general public to vote on which woman they think should be on the $20 bill. Some of the women include Rosa Parks, Susan B. Anthony, and Eleanor Roosevelt. Haley, who do you think? Haley's joining me now. Weather?
I think Susan B. Anthony.
All right, you do? All right.
Because like
She's already on the
helped women.
She's already on the dollar quarter. Eleanor, according to Allie. All right,
We
well.
have an Eleanor fan out in the studio audience.
All right, well, let's talk about, going to weather already?
What about
What's going on?
What about the polar bear?
I like the polar bear.
Me too.
All right, well, finally, a tourist in Norway was on a ski and snowmobile trip and was then attacked by a polar bear. I guess that doesn't happen every day, does it?
It doesn't.
All right, well, now let's get over the weather. We had some strange weather today. Haley.
Very strange weather today. Today was supposed to be the first day of spring, but it seemed more like the first day of winter, if you know what I mean. Like Game of Thrones, winter never left. Anyway, today's weather, 34 degrees Fahrenheit with the high of 40 degrees, low 21. We saw snow turn into rain as the day went on, so very interesting. Wind chill 28 degrees. Yeah. And looking onto the weekend, it's going to look a lot more sunny with the high being 61 degrees Fahrenheit for Saturday and it dropping a little bit to 53 on Sunday. So it's going to be a lot prettier over the weekend than it was today. And now on our 7-day outlook, it's going to be mostly cloudy for coming into the week with Monday and Tuesday. These temperatures seem pretty constant with with the highs being 61, being around that area, and They seem pretty constant. So, and it's going to rain going to Tuesday and Friday, so that's sad. So, our next segment, we're going to see Allie and Emily talk about Cinderella, so let's see that.
Hey guys, I'm Emily Ann alongside Ali Cassaray. Last week we saw the latest live action movie Cinderella, so we're going to give you our review on that.
Yes. If you want me to start.
Oh, well, first
Okay.
let me just say that
okay.
Cinderella is the live action version. It's basically a total replica of the original Disney version, not the
Grim.
the grim version, the more dark version. It's very Disney-esque, has those like morals and pretty costumes in it, and so yeah, it's very true to the Disney version story.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Okay,
So what would you think of it?
Yeah. From the poster, I really was hoping that it would be dark because the poster has the dark lighting with the blue dress, so there's a big contrast with it. I didn't see the trailer before seeing the movie, which I know is really weird. But I didn't feel like I needed to because it was Cinderella, and like you said, it was very true to the story. The only other live action Cinderella I could compare it to was the Brandy version.
With
where
Whitney
she plays,
Houston
where
and-
Whitney Houston's the fairy godmother, which that was like me and Haley's one of our favorites growing up. Besides like Beauty and the Beast and Pocahontas, that was my favorite, but that was like our family movie for car rides, was that Cinderella. And this movie, it wasn't a musical like that version. There's only one song in the whole movie, basically, at the beginning and at the end, with the window.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It's like just a little tune that she.
Yeah,
hums,
and it was really nice. Sung by Lily James, who's from Downton Abbey. I thought that she was a great Cinderella personally. And my only other note was that I liked the costuming a lot. It was a lot of classic style. I want to say 18th century with like corsets, sort of plantation feel. And I also liked the set design. A lot of it was green screen, but I thought the garden was really magical.
It was, yeah.
That was cool. And the slipper was cool. Some of the effects weren't as good, but it was a good movie. I liked. I wish that Gus was cute though. That was my only other
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, I found it surprising that the mice or the animals didn't talk. Since it's a live action, it's something a little bit more real, I guess. But there are the mice. They do, squeak and stuff. But that's about it. So Gus isn't really the same Gus that we know from the Disney films. But as I mentioned before, it's like word for word, frame wise, I feel like all the scenes are the exact same from the animation. But the biggest difference I noticed was the change of character in the stepmother. Kate Blanchett, or however you say her name, was her character had you sort of saw things a little bit from her side as well. In the animation, she's a very static, evil, dark character. In the live action, we sort of see why she's like that way. They explain that it's a little bit of jealousy. The stepmother is sort of jealous that she can never fill in the role that Cinderella's mother had with Cinderella's father. So that sort of plays a role in it. And Kate Blanchett, as the stepmother, blew me away. Like, I thought she was fantastic. She was spiteful, and she made those faces that made you kind of hate her. But then we also see this other side of her that you never saw in the animation, where we kind of can empathize for her situation.
Yeah, I think that just has to do with the year that this movie was made too. I feel like now, in a lot of movies, they focus a lot more on maybe sympathizing for the villain, just because that makes it more interesting to the audience if they've seen the movie a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also just liked the fairy godmother. I don't want to say the actress's name because I was surprised by who the actress was.
Everyone.
I didn't know.
I know who it was.
Do you want to tell
Okay.
everyone and ruin the whole surprise?
It was Helena Bonham Carter, who's, which I understand. If you knew that she was going to be in this film before, you would automatically think that it would be sort of Tim Burton style, as Ali mentioned.
I was
like,
shocked.
very
though.
dark.
I was shocked.
But it wasn't dark at all. It was very, how they played with colors in this film was really interesting. There was often more than not a very dark background, but then the characters were very bright. Their dresses were very, very colorful, and even in the ballroom scene, that's similar to the normal Cinderella. Her dress, which is very classic compared to the other gowns, stood out because they played with the color in there. They made that tone of blue stand out way more, and so yeah, I really liked that. And also, I had another thing. The character choice, the prince. You mentioned you didn't like the choice of the prince. Why not?
I mean, he was fine. I didn't think he was Prince Charming, but that was a minor detail. I mean, for Disney adaptations, like real life, live action, it wasn't bad, but you go in knowing what to expect. And then, yeah, I just didn't like how they were all British either. That was my only thing, but that's literally probably only me that gets annoyed with, like, this British stereotype of, it's so proper.
I didn't even recognize the accents. Like, It didn't even, occur to me. But the prince, I thought, as you mentioned, after we watched it, he's not hot. But
that's what I said. And I was like, is it me or is it, the general demographic can honestly say this dude was not hot?
I agree. I don't think he was insanely attractive to the modern standards of, beauty. But he did have this, very traditional royalty look to him. That's how I felt. So that's why I liked him as a character, because I liked that he didn't fit the normal profile.
Yeah, I mean, his eyes were pretty, but the hair was
They're always dark-haired and
No, but his hair was too
strong
long
build.
too, I felt like. He looked a little girly to me. I don't know if it was just me. I think it's just me at this point getting too nitpicky. But it was a good movie. I wouldn't watch it again, but I would be fine knowing what I know now going into it. Being yeah, I'm totally fine with seeing Cinderella. That's my attitude towards it. So I think families should take their kids, because it wasn't that painful to watch. And I know some kid movies are so painful
I see
to
what
watch.
you mean. Yeah, this movie,
It was good.
Yeah, the moral at the end, I mean, which they say over and over and over and over throughout the film, which is
Courage.
have courage and be kind.
Yeah,
Oh my
which
gosh.
I think is key. Everyone should be kind, because I'm sick of rude people.
Okay, same. But I just thought one thing was that they said that over and over and over throughout the film, which is one of the childish
It needs to
things.
get embedded into your brain.
I know, but I mean, which is good, because this is sort of a children's movie, and they did emphasize that moral a lot, which I liked.
Okay, so I think that we're ending now. So that's all for me.
I liked it. Definitely kid friendly. Great live action. So yeah, let's go to our next thing. All right, and welcome back. I'm Emily Yen alongside Casey Molina.
Hi.
So today, so your segment usually talks about. Oh, there it is. Okay, I was waiting for it. School related segments. So you're at Loudoun, as we mentioned, and you're
Loudoun County, yeah.
Loudoun County.
Yeah.
But which high school are you going to again?
Tuscarora.
I can't pronounce that, but
okay.
that high school.
Yeah.
And you're part of the yearbook committee.
Yes. So I actually didn't plan on being part of the yearbook committee, but when I transferred my classes, that's kind of just how it worked out. Like my photography class got changed to yearbook, which is unfortunate, but I'd never done yearbook before, and what I'm learning about it is actually really cool.
So, I mean, yearbook, it's a class that we've all heard of. I mean, a lot of students take it because they're interested in either the journalistic part or,
Right.
is journalistic a word? Not sure. Or the photo sides.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's usually a really great group of people. So tell me about the process and like what it's like, the environment.
Well, okay, so the environment is super friendly. Actually, like my first day I walked into the class, like they have different groups, and the different groups do cover certain things. They're assigned
So they
different things to
delegate
cover.
the roles,
Yeah.
basically.
So immediately I was acclaimed to a group, and I was like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? But they explained a lot to me. They were really friendly, and basically what I'm just learning is like the interviewing process, which I'm already familiar with, but just like we have to conduct a lot of interviews during lunch, and so we have to go into the cafeteria and talk to a lot of people. And
That's intimidating.
yeah, and it is. And sometimes when you're bringing up like an interview point that people don't necessarily want to talk about, they're kind of rude to you about it, which is not something that I'm used to.
Yeah.
So like they act like they don't have time to talk to you and things like that, but we have to do it as part of yearbooks.
Yeah, that's something that all journalists have to go through, you know,
Yeah.
conducting interviews with people who don't want to be spoken
Yeah,
to.
there's a lot of them. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
The yearbook, it's not, or high school yearbooks are different from like normal elementary yearbooks. It's not
Oh,
just
yeah.
pictures. There's articles, there's
Yeah.
opinion pieces, there's, what's the word? Spreadsheets on events. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things. So what parts are you most interested in?
Right.
What's the process of like making them?
Okay, so I can't talk about too much content-wise, but I can tell you guys one thing. I know one thing that was big in both Fairfax and Loudoun was the whole dress thing, the blue, gold.
Oh, the poll.
Yeah. So we did a poll on that, and that was when I had to go and interview people for it, and they weren't very enthusiastic about that. But I thought that was interesting because it was something that, you know, people cared a lot about. So we got to include that in the yearbook, and it's going to be a very memorable event for people. Like when you look back, you're going to be like, why was that dress such a big deal?
Yeah, to sum up the year, basically.
Right. Yeah, but so we included that, and we included a lot of stuff about our football team because Tuscarora's football team actually went to states. And unfortunately, they lost, but it was a really big deal, and everyone still talks about it. And just our running back at Tuscarora is actually committed to Harvard. So yeah, so everything football-wise is like a huge deal, which we talked about a lot. And just, I guess, being a part of that is really interesting. I know I missed out on all the action, but getting the aftermath, being able to talk about it is cool.
So like because school pictures are taken like early on in the year, and you weren't part of the high school then, but how long does it take, or when do they have to, when are the deadlines to like compile all the pictures that they need?
Right.
When do they have to print? That
Well,
sort of thing.
okay, so there's different deadlines. And unfortunately, when I got there, the first thing I asked, I was like, so I didn't take a senior picture for the school, so how's that going to work? And unfortunately, I'm not going to have my picture in the yearbook, but I'll be in it in other ways. But every week has a deadline, so we do coverage for like weeks in advance, and the weeks are named by their week. And so we'll get a deadline, or a deadline will be submitted to our yearbook teacher, and she'll be like, okay, this like pages like 1 to 50, or like probably like 1 to 10 are due by this date and stuff like that. So when we do that, all of our pictures, everything, like all of our content, the pages have to be done by that date and then submitted and then checked, and then that stuff gets finalized into what's going to be the final yearbook.
So is there like, do you guys have like a process of like picking a theme? I won't ask like what particular
I can tell you what our theme is.
Okay.
I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to do that. So our theme is just one more thing, and it's basically just one more thing that you'd like to do before this year ends, or like just one more thing. Like in each story that we covered, it would be just one more detail that made it that much better, you know? So, and it's unfortunate, I can't tell you guys that much about our theme, but that's basically what it is.
That's really exciting. Like
Yeah.
over the years, I've seen like in middle school we had like a magazine, like
Right.
edition, so like there were interactive like games in it, and in another year in middle school there was like a MacBook style. I'm not sure. It was interesting. Yeah, but so that I was curious about that. And another big question that's usually a big part of yearbooks is superlatives.
Right.
So that so would you like to talk about
Yeah,
that?
okay, yeah. So we were actually talking about this.
Yeah.
So our school does not do senior superlatives, which is really sad, but we're doing something else, and it's a senior survey. And there's like questions like, and this kind of goes along with our theme, like what's one more piece of advice that you would have for underclassmen, one more thing you'd like to do before you leave high school, things like that. And so each person's like one thing gets chosen from their senior survey and put in a part of the yearbook. So there's going to be a separate section for all of that stuff. But that's our version of senior superlatives.
Yeah, and I know because I took journalism with you last year. So what do you think the differences are between, and you've taken photo too, right?
Yeah.
So you've taken photo, journalism, and now yearbook. What do you think the biggest difference is between those three classes?
I would say that journalism focuses on more of a factual story, and it's all about getting the facts, as our teacher, Mr. Haggerty, would say. Yearbook is definitely like a people interest aspect. You know, you want to cover things that people actually care about, and it's a lot of like pop culture, but it's like within the school. And then I'd say photo is really all, like, it's really just about like the art of taking a picture and really just like the beauty of, you know, developing your own pictures, because we did a lot of like old style photography. So I would say that's the biggest difference between all of them, is like some of them just focus on more of the social aspect, and then photography is all about pictures. So obviously, but
like the composition.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. So is there anything, before we close off, is there anything else you'd like to add on about the yearbook classes?
I feel like it's a really great opportunity, and I definitely recommend the class, especially, you know, if people are interested in journalism, and I would say take the class, take your book. So
all right, so thank you, Casey, as always. And next we have a segment with Laj and Ritu, their usual health segment, so let's cut to that.
Hello, I'm Ritu Preddy.
Hello, I'm Lodger Preddy.
And we're here to talk about allergies. It's springtime, a lot of pollen, and I was sick for like last week due to allergies. And today we're gonna inform you about the symptoms of allergies, why they occur in your body, and the treatment for it.
So basically, an allergy is an immune response or reaction to substances that are not usually harmful.
So some symptoms of allergies are sneezing, wheezing, nasal congestion, coughing, itchy, watery eyes.
And also runny nose, itchy throat, stomach ache, itchy skin, hives, and irritability.
So useful information about this can be, a skin test can be helpful for people to know what they're allergic to. So what you have to do is they poke a needle, and then if you're allergic to some kind of substance, then it will, like, the bump will rise up to inform you that you have an allergy of that substance.
And also there are like allergy shots, which will like help you gradually like increase your ability to be immune to the allergy.
And there are over-the-counter prescription or medication to ease down allergic reaction.
Yeah, it can't be like all fine, but it will just be like ease it down.
And there are some vaccines that are provided for helpful for your allergies as well.
There's a thing called antihistamines that have been used for years to treat allergy symptoms, and that can be like taken as pills, liquid, or like eye drops.
Allergies, they are technically caused due to exposure in which the body fights it as a like invader. During that exposure, the immune system studies the allergen. So technically, like if you're allergic to something, then if you have cold ones, then like if that's a new virus in your body, then your system doesn't really recognize it, and the second time it actually recognizes it, and your immune system starts to fight with it.
Yeah, and also like if you're not allergic to something when you are young, it might start like later on. You might just like started getting like allergic to that thing.
Hello, I'm Ali Castro, here to talk about the music. And before I start, I just want to say that Casey is so positive. I would complain so much if I were in her shoes. I hope you guys sitting at home would be like, yeah, that is a model teenager right there. Not on Tumblr complaining, because if you find my Tumblr, that's all that it is. You're welcome, Casey. Okay, so before we go into my presentation, I left out Madonna's new album, and all that I wanted to say is that if you're a Madonna fan, I would encourage you not to buy it. Just because it's not like it was really bad, but it's not good, but it's okay. You know, it's like her last album. I think she needs to stop, like, while she's ahead. That's all that I have to say. But she's still Madonna, so yeah. So now with our first album, I'm just gonna bash a lot of people tonight, I think. But Bob Dylan, Shadows in the Night. This album is him covering Frank Sinatra with a 5-piece band arrangement. And if you know anything about Bob Dylan, he's a folk singer. So the fact that he is covering Frank Sinatra is shocking. He said this because Frank Sinatra has always been one of his favorites. So this was like his artistic, I'm gonna do something fun for once. This album, literally, it's not, oh, we aren't there yet. Okay, we're not there. Go back. Okay. Oh, too far. Okay, this album isn't very good. It's like a 2 out of 5. He butchers the songs with his singing. The arrangement's pretty good with the 5-piece band, but you shouldn't be a crooner if you're a folk singer. That's all that I have to say. So 2 out of 5. Next band, well, this is Slater Kidney with No Cities to Love. This was their 8th album, following their last album, The Woods, which was released 10 years ago. This is because of Carrie Brownstein doing Portlandia. She also had another album come back in 2010 with her band Wild Flag. But this album doesn't disappoint. It still follows up to The Woods. Personally, I didn't think that The Woods was as good, even though it's their most commercially successful album. But they didn't lose any of their energy within those 10 years. My favorite songs off this album was Fangless and Surface Envy, and the singles are A New Wave and No Cities to Love, which is the title track. Also, an announcement was made by them that Carrie Brownstein's memoir, Hunger Makes Me a Modern Girl, is the title of her memoir. It will be coming out in October of this year, which is a lyric from the song Modern Girl off of the album The Woods. But One Beat's still my favorite album, but this is still very good. Next, we have Björk. Volinkura is, I believe, how you pronounce this. If you're not familiar with Björk, she is a very unorthodox pop singer. She sings the song You Fall in Love. You know what I'm talking about? You would if I played it. You would. She's sort of, her voice is very unique. If you know the artist Kimbra, how Kimbra belts is how she sings all the time. The album is definitely very interesting. It's a breakup album, so it's sort of depressing. Not that you would get that from this cover. But it's similar to By Ella. She has very complicated album titles. There's a lot of interesting synth, and I like the tracks Mouth Mantra and Black Lakes. This album is not on Spotify though, because she did not want Spotify to have it, apparently. Yeah, and this album was definitely good. You should definitely check her out if you don't know who she is. And now we move on to the next album. This album ruined my day when it came out. Let me tell you. So Purity Ring is an electronic band that I came across one day freshman year with their album Shrines. That was their first album. It came out in 2010. That album blew my mind because I'm not a big fan of electronic music, so the fact that I liked it was impressive. But this second album is the worst electronic album I've ever heard in my life. It's disappointing, like, honestly, it ruined my day. The single Push and Pull's okay, and Begin Again's okay. But yeah, check out their first album, Fine Shrines. It's great. Now on to the next slide. Empire. This has various artists on it. There's been a lot of commercials about this soundtrack. It features Jennifer Hudson. She's bae. And Courtney Love, who I'm singing June actually. Estelle and Juicy J, just to name a few. And then obviously the cast of Empire. I mean, I think commercially, if you just like whatever's on the radio, you'll love this. Personally, I mean, you can't expect much if it's a TV show soundtrack, but this album was terrible. Like, I threw in good albums like Slater Kidney and Bjork, but this wasn't very good. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, this album though, Drake, if you're reading this, it's too late, is so good. It is his fourth mixtape. Following up Nothing Was the Same. I wasn't a huge fan of Nothing Was the Same, but I know everyone loved that album. This one's cool though because it's like old school. It doesn't rely on as much like big beats and like all this background stuff. He just raps it out, you know? My favorite song is Star 67. It's basically a better version of his first album, Thank Me Later. It's so much better lyrically. And yeah, also I just really liked how on social media people were like, Chick-fil-A wrote his suicide note. On to the next album. We have Will Butler. He is the younger brother of Win Butler, who's the lead singer of Arcade Fire, which we know 2 years ago Arcade Fire had their big, like, here we are, we're not just some indie band, we're gonna win some Grammys and stuff. He obviously decided to come out with his solo album. And just to say a little bit about him, he's a multi-instrumental person. He knows how to play a lot of instruments. And I think going into this record, he was like, I'm gonna do everything possible. That was a bad idea. I mean, the whole album sort of runs together. Like, all the tracks sort of sound similar. I mean, it's fine. I think that it's interesting. And I hope that he gets out of his, like, brother's shadow, because I think that this is what this album was. Yeah, but it was pretty good. Like, a 2.5 out of 5. So it was, like, okay. There you go. Next one is Modest Mouse, Strangers to Ourselves. Sorry, I got tongue-tied. It's an okay album. It was produced by a lot of different people over a long period of time. And the bassist Eric Judy left during this album, so they lost one of their members on this album. I thought the song Coyotes was cool. The intro was sort of cool. And The Ground Walks with Time in a Box. Each track is specifically different, but I think if you're unfamiliar with Modest Mouse, this isn't the album to listen to. It's very disappointing to their past albums. And I'm not just saying that. I know this sounds like, oh, she's one of those people who's like, the first album is the best. This isn't the case. Their album preceding this is much better. And this album is just a carbon copy of all their past work. That's just terrible. To leave on a positive note, I didn't realize how negative this whole review would be till I just said it out loud. Kendrick Lamar's new album, To Pimp a Butterfly, is beautiful. if you don't believe in new rap music anymore, you need to buy this album. You go cry tears of joy. And then lastly, Courtney Barnett. She's like an upcoming artist. You need to buy her new album. It is incredible, and it makes me want to cry how good it is. But yeah, I'm done, and I'm gonna throw it over to Emily with her positivity.
Okay, thank you, Allie, for your fabulous and ever-amusing music reviews. I'm just going to touch up on the Herndon robotics team, which last Thursday through Saturday, over the weekend, had a competition in Florida. So this was a pretty big deal for Herndon High School. I don't think we've ever gone to a nationwide robotics competition before, but it was held in Orlando, Florida. The competition was called OFRC, the First Robotics Competition. So basically, the whole team went to Orlando, and they brought a robot that they had built within the past 6 weeks to the competition. They were required to stack totes and boxes and crates, and they ranked 28 out of the 60, so that's the upper half nationwide, which was pretty great. We were going to show a clip of our previous segment that we had done with them when they created an Angry Birds machine, where like they set a ginormous Angry Bird on some and they just catapult it. Anyway, the Herndon robotics team is amazing. They always create the coolest stuff. They make drones and these catapult machines, these things that can move boxes and crates. So we're really proud of them for ranking in the upper half in a nationwide competition. So that's all on a little robotics update. Now I'm going to throw it over to Raleigh, who is back after a very long time. He's going to do sports as he usually does, specifically this time on March Madness, I believe.
Yep.
So let's throw it over to Raleigh.
Hey guys, I'm back and I'm here with some news on March Madness. For those of you who don't know what March Madness is, first of all, you need to get out more. Second of all, it is the beginning of the end for all NCAA basketball. It's all 64 teams, which all their playoffs, which take place in a few days. So you can see why they call it madness. 64 games in like just a week. It's crazy. I only have time to recap one conference's game, so here we go. In contrast to last year's March Madness, there have been like no upsets this year. It's all been, I expected that, except with Iowa State. I'm really mad about that. Anyway, first place, Kentucky beat 16th place Hampton 75-56. That wasn't really surprising at all. Kentucky had a strong defense, and they pretty much just stopped Hampton from getting to the net. Next, we have Cincinnati, who beat Purdue, which was a very good game, very close. They came out over them 66-65. And next, we have first place West Virginia against 12th place Buffalo. They're playing right now. I think you want to go check that out. I believe it's on ESPN, ESPN2. No, I'm getting reports that it's not on. It's on CBS apparently. Anyway, moving on. 6th place Butler beat 11th place Texas 56-48. I'm not happy about that. I'm sure my cousin is not happy about that. We're big Texas fans. 3rd place Notre Dame beat 14th place Northeast 69-65. That was kind of unexpected. It was expected to be kind of close, but not like as much as a giveaway as it was in the second half. 7th place Wichita State, I believe that's how Wichita. Thank you, Allie. Wichita State and Indiana, they are going right now. Those are on ESPN. You will want to go check those out. 2nd place Kansas beat 15th place New Mexico State 75 to 56. That was pretty embarrassing. Not really a game worth watching. Don't go bother looking at the highlights. It's not worth it. 4th place Maryland, just about an hour ago, started playing 13th place Valparaiso. It's a very interesting name. They're on ESPN2 right now. Go check that out. Tomorrow, the next round of the round of 30, the first part, of the round of 32 is on, with 1st place Kentucky playing 8th place Cincinnati. That is likely to be a very good game because both teams are very strong on the defense, more as opposed to their offense. which will be very interesting. That's tomorrow at 2:40. Go check that out. Sixth place Butler will be playing Notre Dame at 9:40. It's Saturday night, so hopefully you're going to have time to see that one. It's going to be pretty interesting. And Kansas University will play the winner of Wichita and Indiana, whoever wins that one. In other immediate sports news, we have hockey. The hockey season is drawing to a close, and there's only a handful of games left in the 82-game regular season, which is a lot of games, by the way. So every game is counting now. There's only like 6 games. The Capitals, who are our local team, they have a fair chance of making the playoffs. They're a pretty good team. They're just in a very good division, so all the teams above them have about 5 points more than them, so it's going to be kind of hard to regain that in 6 games. It all depends on who they beat and if they lose. And I guess that's all I have until the hockey playoffs start and more March Madness continues. And now it's these guys coming over.
Well, Raleigh, thank you so much, and we know how much you love hockey.
I love
so
hockey.
we'll be looking forward to that, and we'll also be looking forward
Oh my
to
gosh,
more
I feel
March
like
Madness. I know
everyone's
Raleigh,
taller than
since
me.
Raleigh hasn't been here in 4 months, we don't know. He's grown like 3 inches.
Grew maybe a
Something.
little bit.
Anyway, it's been a fairly great show today. Good job, everyone. And we hope that you will follow us on Twitter at Herndon Live, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and head on over to Herndon, or head on over to hctv.org so you can see more Herndon Live content as well as other HCTV episodes.
And it was nice bringing back a lot of new people,
That's
new
right.
old segments. Like we haven't had a movie review in a while. Or not a movie
We always
review.
have movie
Music
review.
review.
Music review. Yeah,
Always
music
lots
review.
of fun.
And Elisa Sage will be joining us very soon. She's back on the team, which is great to have her back as well. And also we have a programming note. We'll be back in 3 weeks, not 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I hope everyone will be having a great time celebrating spring break. You know?
Yes.
And that's what's going on
Hallelujah.
right now. And thanks so much for watching. We hope to see you right back here in 3 weeks. Good night, everyone. Weeks.
Good night.
Make it your 5 inches. That would be funny.
I hope not.